I woke up to scratching. Not the kind of faint rustle you blame on raccoons in the walls, but a steady, deliberate scrape that seemed to come from inside my room. It was dark, 3:27 a.m., according to the red glow of my alarm clock, and I was too groggy to process what the hell I was hearing until it stopped. That silence was worse than the sound. I lay there, heart thumping, every muscle tense, until I realized my bedroom door, which I always lock, was slightly open. Just a sliver, enough for the hall light to glow faintly along the edge. That's when I saw it. A black shape crouched in the doorway. Not a person exactly. Too thin, too sharp, but shaped like one. My brain tried to categorize it. Like when you see a code in the dark and convince yourself it's nothing. But the longer I looked, the more I realized it was looking back. And then it crawled into the room. It moved on all fours, jerky and wrong, like it didn't know how joints were supposed to bend. My mouth went dry. I wanted to scream, but couldn't. My chest locked up as though the air had been vacuumed out of the room. The shadow crawled closer until it reached the side of my bed. I swear I felt the mattress dip, though nothing touched me. That's when I heard the voice. Not out loud. Inside my head. You've seen me before. The words weren't a statement. They were an accusation. A memory slammed into me, sudden and vivid. Driving down an empty country road late at night, years ago, when a pale figure in an old nurse's uniform stood on the shoulder, staring as I passed. Her eyes had been solid black. I told myself for years it was just fatigue, but the voice made me remember. The shadow thing whispered again. You let her in, and then the room tilted. My bed was suddenly at an angle, as if the whole house had rotated. I scrambled to grab the nightstand, but my hand met nothing, just empty air. The floor was gone. I was falling. I hit ground hard, but not my bedroom floor. I was standing in a circular hallway. The walls curved in perfect symmetry, white plaster smeared with age, doors evenly spaced like segments of a clock. Above me, a staircase spiraled upward, but when I tried to follow it with my eyes, the steps just thinned out, vanishing into nothing. The air smelled like antiseptic and mold. Somewhere far off, I heard the squeak of rubber soles on tile. My stomach dropped. That sound was familiar, the shuffle of nurses' shoes. I started walking, pressing my hand to each door. Every one was locked except one near the far end. The knob was ice cold, but it turned. The room inside was dim, lit only by a faint green glow. Machines hummed, their displays flickering with text too fast to read. In the center sat an old desktop computer, monitor buzzing. The words on screen stabilized just long enough for me to make them out. Hello again. And then, beneath it, letters appeared one by one, like someone, or something, was typing. Did you bring the dog? My throat tightened. I hadn't touched a keyboard, but the cursor blinked like it was waiting for me to answer. The room went colder. I heard claws clicking against the floor behind me, slow, deliberate, circling. I turned, expecting a Doberman or a German Shepherd, but what slunk into the glow of the monitor wasn't a dog. Its body was stretched too thin, legs bent the wrong way like a broken marionette. Its fur was wrong, not fur at all but shifting darkness, like the void between stars. Where its face should have been was only a hollow snout, a blacker hole inside the black. I froze, but the machine responded for me. Yes, it came back with you. The thing padded closer. The clicking of its claws didn't match its steps. Sometimes 2 clicks for one paw, sometimes none at all, like reality couldn't keep up with it. The monitor typed again. Once you see it, IT never leaves. The dog-shaped void lowered its head until the snout hovered inches from my chest. I felt nothing, no breath, no warmth. Yet my ribs ached as if something inside me was being pulled toward it. Then, without moving its jaws, I heard it. Run. I bolted. The circular hallway warped around me, doors stretching taller, farther apart, like I was running inside a funhouse mirror. My footsteps echoed too loud, like the sound wasn't mine but someone, or something, chasing. I didn't dare look back. A staircase appeared to my left where it hadn't been before. I didn't think, just grabbed the rail and pulled myself up. The wood felt slick, as if something oily coated it, but I climbed anyway. My breath tore out of me, ragged and shallow. Halfway up, the steps vanished. Not crumbled, not broken, just gone. I looked down, expecting a drop, but there was no floor either. Only darkness, yawning wide beneath me. I clung to the banister, trembling, when I heard her voice, the nurse. Calm. Gentle. Too gentle. This way. Don't look down. A shape materialized at the top landing. A woman in an old-fashioned nurse's dress, cap tilted slightly, face hidden in shadow. She raised one hand and beckoned. I wanted to scream, "I know what you are," but instead my body betrayed me. I started climbing the invisible steps. Each one appeared just as my foot came down, vanishing behind me. When I reached the landing, she finally lifted her face. Her eyes were bottomless black, and she smiled. Her smile didn't reach her eyes, couldn't, because there was nothing there but pits. I staggered back, but the landing behind me had already crumbled into darkness. I was trapped between her and the void. She stepped closer, shoes clicking softly on the wood. The sound was wrong, out of sync, like the dog's claws had been. My mind screamed to move, but my legs locked. She leaned in close enough for me to smell her, antiseptic layered over something rotten. Her lips parted. For a second, I thought she was going to speak. Instead, the air around us bent, like a pressure wave rolling through the house. My ears popped. The light flickered, and suddenly she was behind me. I whipped around. Empty. But the voice came anyway, everywhere at once, whispering like it was pressed right against my eardrum. You brought it here. You always bring it here. The floor lurched, and the circular hallway folded in on itself, doors slamming shut one after another in a deafening ripple. Somewhere in the dark below, the void dog growled. Low. Hungry. And then the computer's voice, flat, mechanical, cut through everything. Do not let her touch you. The nurse's cold hand brushed my wrist. The touch was like plunging my arm into ice water, so cold it burned. My vision blurred, colors bleeding out until everything was washed in grayscale. I yanked my hand back, but the damage was already done. A handprint bloomed across my skin, black as ink, sinking deeper with every heartbeat. The nurse tilted her head, watching with that impossible smile. It's already inside you, she whispered. I stumbled backward and slammed into a door that hadn't been there before. The knob rattled under my palm, like something on the other side was trying to force it open. The growl below rose into a frenzy, echoing up through the collapsing stairwell. The computer's voice returned, harsh, urgent. Choose a door. Now. The nurse reached for me again, her fingers twitching like broken twigs. I panicked, twisted the nearest knob, and threw myself through. Instead of a room, there was only a blinding white corridor, buzzing like fluorescent lights though no bulbs were visible. The door slammed behind me and vanished, leaving me alone in the endless hallway. I thought I was safe, until I saw the shadows moving along the walls. Not mine. The shadows slid along the walls like liquid, twitching and stretching into shapes that didn't match anything human. They crawled upward, merging across the ceiling until it looked like a swarm of bodies writhing just out of reach. I backed away, heart hammering, but the hallway stretched with me. No matter how fast I moved, the buzzing lights above never changed, and the walls seemed to breathe. That's when one of the shadows peeled itself free. It dropped onto the floor ahead of me, crouched low, limbs too long, its head jerking like it was learning how to hold itself upright. For a moment it stayed still, and I almost convinced myself it wasn't aware of me. Then it snapped its head up. Empty sockets. Just black voids where I should have been. I froze, but the computer's voice echoed down the corridor, faint but unmistakable. Don't stop. The thing lunged. I ran, legs burning, breath tearing at my throat. The walls blurred, the buzzing grew louder, and somewhere above the static I heard the nurse's calm, lilting tone. You're only running in circles. The floor beneath me shifted, and suddenly I wasn't in the corridor anymore. I was back in my bedroom, and the door was open again. The shift was so sudden I collapsed onto the carpet, gasping. My alarm clock still glowed red on the nightstand. 3:27 a.m., exactly the same as before. For a second, I thought maybe it had all been some insane dream. But then I saw the handprint. Black, charred-looking, stamped deep into my wrist like a brand. The skin around it pulsed faintly, as if something beneath was moving. The door creaked wider. My stomach dropped. A shape stood in the hall, silhouetted against the faint glow of the bathroom light. Tall, thin, crooked. My brain screamed Shadow Man. But when it shifted, I realized it wasn't standing at all. It was crawling, the way it had before, limbs bending backward like a broken insect. And behind it, padding softly, claws clicking in broken rhythm, came the void dog. I scrambled for my phone on the nightstand. No signal. No Wi-Fi. The screen glitched, flickering between apps on its own until it landed on the Notes app. Words began typing across the screen without me touching a thing. They don't belong to the house. The house belongs to them. The shadow man slipped into the room. The dog lowered its hollow snout toward the floor, and the nurse's voice drifted through the crackling static of my phone speaker. You never should have opened the door. The words hit me harder than a scream. My chest tightened like my lungs had shriveled. I backed against the wall, clutching my useless phone, trying to think, trying to do something. But the shadow man was already halfway across the room, joints clicking with every lurch forward. The void dog followed close, its snout dipping side to side, like it was scenting something I couldn't smell. The phone buzzed in my hand. New text, scrawling letter by letter. Do not let them corner you. As if I had anywhere else to go. I threw myself toward the window. My fingers fumbled with the latch, heart hammering. Behind me, claws scraped against wood. When I glanced over my shoulder, the shadow man was standing now, stretched tall enough that its head brushed the ceiling. The glass finally gave way. I shoved the window open and climbed onto the sill. Cold night air hit my face like a slap. But instead of my backyard, there was nothing. Just a black spiral staircase dropping away into the void. I didn't have time to think. The nurse's voice was suddenly behind me, whispering against my ear though no one was there. Go on. Step through. It's the only way out. The shadow man reached for me with arms too long. So I jumped. I landed hard on the spiral staircase, knees jarring. The iron steps groaned under my weight, but held. Below me stretched nothing but endless black, the stairs winding down into it like a corkscrew. Up above, the window I'd leapt from had already vanished. Only the nurse's voice lingered, echoing through the void. Down you go. Don't stop until it finds you. The void dog's growl vibrated the metal beneath my feet. My stomach turned. It wasn't behind me anymore. It was below. I started down the stairs, each step ringing like a bell. The sound traveled, echoing back in distorted delays, like someone, or something, was imitating me in the dark. The farther I went, the more the stairs warped. Some steps bent sideways, others stretched long as hallways. Once, I nearly tripped where a step dissolved into smoke before solidifying again under my foot. Then I saw it. Halfway down the spiral, perched on the railing like a grotesque gargoyle, was the shadow man. Its head lolled at an impossible angle, sockets staring down at me. It grinned, not with teeth, but with a widening rip across its face, skin splitting open like paper. And from the depths of that slit mouth, I heard the computer's voice. Turn back. But behind me, higher on the stairs, the nurse was waiting. Her eyes glowed in the dark like twin coals. I froze, caught between them. The nurse above, glowing eyes fixed on me, and the shadow man below, perched and grinning like it had all the time in the world. The staircase trembled. Somewhere deep in the void, the dog's claws scraped, closer than before. The sound bounced up through the metal like a drumbeat. The nurse stepped down a stair. Just one. The air rippled with the movement, pressing against me like a weight. I panicked and climbed over the railing, dangling in the open air. My arms screamed, muscles tearing, but I didn't care. I couldn't go toward either of them. My legs swung, searching desperately for another step. And there it was, a door, just hanging in the void, 20 feet away, glowing faintly around the frame. I don't remember deciding. I just dropped. The fall wasn't a fall at all. It was like gravity forgot me. One moment I was plummeting. The next my feet touched solid ground in front of the door. My knees buckled, but I didn't break. The glow seeped from the edges like a pulse. I reached out, hand trembling, and the handle turned on its own. The door swung open, revealing a hospital corridor. Yellowed linoleum floors. Flickering fluorescents. A nurse's cart abandoned in the middle of the hall. And on the wall, a sign. Ward C. The same ward where my grandmother died. The smell hit me first. Disinfectant so strong it burned, layered over the sour stench of something left to rot. My stomach twisted. I hadn't been in Ward C since I was 13, visiting my grandmother when she was in her final days. I remembered the peeling paint, the rattling vents, the way the nurses whispered at the end of the hall when they thought I couldn't hear. She sees them again. The corridor stretched impossibly long now, lined with doors I didn't remember. Most were shut tight, but some hung open, showing only blackness inside. A squeak of rubber soles echoed from around the corner. My breath caught. I pressed against the wall, praying it was just a normal nurse. But when the figure rounded the corner, pushing a cart, I knew better. Her cap tilted slightly. Her uniform pristine despite the rod in the air. Her eyes, solid black. It was her. She stopped mid-haul and tilted her head like she'd been expecting me all along. "You never said goodbye to her," she whispered. I wanted to deny it, to scream that wasn't true, but my throat closed. Because she was right. And then I noticed the cart she was pushing wasn't full of supplies. It was full of arms. Gray, withered, twitching like they were still trying to reach for something. I staggered back, ball rising in my throat. The cart squeaked closer, metal wheels rattling over the linoleum. The arms shifted, grasping blindly, fingers curling and uncurling like they were groping for me specifically. The nurse's voice never rose above a whisper, but it filled the corridor like a shout. "She called for you. Over and over. But you wouldn't come." My knees buckled. I remembered it now, how I'd refused to visit that last week, too scared to see my grandmother fading, her eyes clouded with morphine. I'd stayed home, pretending schoolwork mattered more. The blackened handprint on my wrist pulsed, sending hot needles up my arm. One of the withered arms in the cart suddenly matched it exactly. Same size, same crooked fingers. It shot upward, impossibly fast, clamping around my branded wrist. The cold was unbearable, like dry ice sinking into bone. I screamed and wrenched backward. Skin tore. Blood splattered across the linoleum, bright against the yellowed floor. The nurse's smile widened. "You're hers now." The lights above flickered, buzzing so loud it drowned everything. When they steadied, the corridor was gone. I was back in the circular house. Only this time, every single door stood wide open. And from each, something was crawling out. Dozens of them, shadow-thin figures, jointed wrong, dragging themselves through the doorways like spiders learning to walk. Their movements weren't synchronized, but the sound they made was a steady, wet scrape of limbs on wood, in perfect rhythm with my heartbeat. I spun, searching for the staircase, the nurse, anything, but the circle was closed. No way out. The branded hand on my wrist throbbed until it felt like the bone itself might crack. The crawling things froze all at once, heads jerking toward me as if the pulse had summoned them. Every single one grinned. A sound tore through the air, metal scraping metal, deeper than thunder. The void dog emerged from one of the doorways, its black body flickering at the edges like it didn't fully exist here. Its hollow snout tilted toward me. The crawling figures parted to make a path for it. My phone buzzed in my pocket, vibrating so hard it hurt. I yanked it out, cracks split the screen, but text still scrawled across it. "If it takes you, you won't come back." The void dog lowered itself, preparing to lunge. Behind me, the nurse's whisper slid through the circle like a knife. "Then let it. That's why you're here." The dog launched. I dove sideways, the air warping as its hollow snout slammed into the floorboards where I'd just stood. The wood blackened, curling inward like the void had bitten a hole straight through reality. I scrambled to my feet, but the crawling figures closed in, their limbs clacking together like a nest of bones. Every step I took, they shifted to block me, smiling wider, jaws cracking open into black voids that matched the dog's. The phone buzzed again, spasming in my grip. More words. "Stairs. Find the stairs." My eyes darted around the circle. Nothing but doors. Nothing but those endless shapes spilling out. Panic clawed my throat. Then I saw it. Not a door, but a gap in the wall, twisting upward into shadow. A staircase, barely visible, steps half-formed, flickering like a bad signal. I ran. Hands clawed at my legs, nails scraping skin, but I kicked free and hurled myself into the opening. The steps solidified under my weight, one at a time, as if deciding to exist just for me. The growl rose behind me, vibrating the staircase, shaking dust from the ceiling. The void dog was coming, and over its roar, the nurse's whisper floated up the stairs. "Higher won't save you. The house has no top." I climbed anyway, legs burning, lungs raw. Each step blinked into place just before my foot landed, vanishing behind me the moment I left it. The staircase felt alive, deciding in real time whether to let me climb or drop me into the void. The growl below turned into a frenzy of claws scraping iron. The void dog was following, faster than I could run. Halfway up, the stairs opened into a landing. I stumbled onto it, clutching the railing, desperate for a second to breathe. The landing wasn't empty. There was a chair. Just an ordinary wooden chair. And sitting in it was my grandmother. Or what looked like her. Her hospital gown hung loose over her skeletal frame. Eyes sunken deep, lips pulled into a thin smile. She lifted one trembling hand toward me. "Finally," she rasped. Her voice was a mix of her real voice and the nurse's whisper, overlapping, phasing in and out. "You came back." My stomach nodded. I took a step closer before I realized I couldn't move away. My branded wrist burned, pulling me forward like a leash. Her other hand, shriveled and gray, rested on her lap. And in her palm, pulsing faintly like a living thing, was the same black void that filled the dog's snout. "Take it," she whispered. Behind me, the dog's claws struck the first step of the landing. The air vibrated with the dog's growl as it crested the landing. My grandmother, or the thing wearing her shape, leaned closer, holding out the writhing darkness in her palm. My branded wrist throbbed in rhythm with it, dragging my arm forward no matter how hard I fought. I shook my head, choking back bile. "No, I don't want it," I croaked. Her smile widened, splitting skin at the corners of her mouth. Her eyes flickered, first her familiar hazel, then bottomless black. "You already carry it," she whispered. "This just makes it whole." The void dog lunged, jaws gaping. At the last second, she snapped her head toward it. It froze. Just froze midair, suspended like a puppet. Its body flickered violently, edges dissolving. The growl warped into static, then silence. She turned back to me, hand still outstretched. "Choose," she said. "Take it, or let them tear you apart until there's nothing left." The shadows from below were climbing the stairs now, dozens of them, their grins stretching wide enough to split their faces. The phone buzzed in my pocket again, frantic, screen cracked, but still readable. "Do not touch it." I looked up. My grandmother's hand was inches from mine, and the stairs beneath me started to crumble. The metal shrieked as the steps behind me buckled and fell away into the void. The shadows clambered up what remained, their limbs snapping into shapes no body should hold. My grandmother, that thing, kept her palm outstretched, the black mass inside writhing like it was alive. My branded wrist burned hotter, pulling me toward it, my muscles no longer my own. I thought about the nurse's voice, the dog, the handprint that wouldn't fade. All of it led here, to this moment. "Take it," she hissed, her voice dropping into something deeper, hungrier. "You were chosen long before you were born." The void dog twitched in the air like a glitch, frozen by her command, but I could see its body straining to break free. The shadows below screamed in unison, a sound like tearing metal and human wailing all at once. The phone slipped from my sweaty hand, clattering on the stair. The screen lit up one final time, text burned into it. "Jump. Now." The stair under my feet cracked open. I had no choice. I hurled myself sideways into the void. And instead of falling, I hit water. The shock stole the breath from my lungs. Freezing water swallowed me whole, dragging me down into blackness. I kicked, fought, clawed toward what I hoped was the surface, but the surface never came. Shapes moved beneath me. Long, thin limbs brushing my ankles, tugging at my clothes. My chest burned, desperate for air. Then, above me, a glow. I swam toward it with everything I had left. The water thinned, turned to mist, and I burst upward, gasping, coughing, onto solid ground. I was standing in my bedroom. The carpet soaked under my knees, dripping water into the floorboards. My alarm clock glowed red. 3:27 a.m., exactly where it had started. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd imagined it all, until I looked at my wrist. The black handprint was still there, deeper than ever, the veins around it spiderwebbing dark under the skin. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, screen cracked, dripping with water that shouldn't be there. One new message burned across it. "You didn't escape. You just came back." The door creaked open, and in the hall, I heard claws clicking on the floor.